Welcome, everyone. You're watching In the Crosshairs. I'm your host, Raquel Okyay, and my special guest today is Shotgun Charlie.
How are you, Raquel? Thanks for...
I'm so happy to have you on the program. Charlie Cook. He's from New Jersey, and he is definitely a two-way gun enthusiast. Him and I probably met at the Gun Rights Policy Conference. I believe we were both on the same panel in Tampa.
In Tampa, we both spoke at. We were on different panels, but
okay.
But I saw you interviewed on the Polite Society podcast.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Wait a second. There's a cute looking woman here. I gotta see if I can meet her.
I can't blame you. So good to have you on the show. This is my 32nd episode.
Oh, awesome.
And I started the show, Charlie, because I wanted to combat the onslaught of negativity towards the Second Amendment. I also wanted to give the public a bird's eye view of, how us gun owners and gun enthusiasts, behave ourselves. Generally speaking, every single gun owner I know, is a law-abiding citizen. That we are, hardworking, educated. We are part of society. We love our country. And we love our Second Amendment rights. And I don't think that the public should be bombarded with this negative connotation towards gun owners. So I'm really here to combat that. I know you can help me do that. So the first thing I want to know from you, Charlie, is how did you get involved? And I know you're an NRA-certified gun trainer as well. And I know you do your own video podcast as well. So I want to hear about how you got involved with firearms and protecting the Second Amendment and where you're at now.
Gotcha. Well, first I want to say I'm from Massachusetts, not from New Jersey.
Sorry.
Okay. That's all right.
No offense, New Jerseyans.
No, Massachusetts. It's equally a bad place for gun owners. I'll tell you that right now.
That is true. Yeah.
So I grew up as a gun agnostic. I wasn't into it. I wasn't against it. I thought, being a young boy, I grew up in the Midwest, and being a young kid, I certainly enjoyed all the, the action movies. But I wasn't a pro gun guy. My deal is this: I wanted to be a musician. So I was not a guy. It wasn't for me. It wasn't something I was interested in. And that was it. I had some friends that were hunters, and that what got me into it is I've been a teacher for a while, and I had a son, and on September 11th, things changed for a lot of people. And what changed for me is I was teaching in a public school. After September 11th, the principal called us in, and he said that if we had an incident where somebody came into the school, and this before we started calling it an active shooter, but if somebody came to the school that's not supposed to be there and bad things were happening, he would get on the intercom and say, "Eagle has landed," and that we're all supposed to hide under our desks. We're lock the door and hide under the desks. And I said, well, that's ridiculous. I sat in the room with all the teachers, and I was 30. I wasn't really politically active and didn't pay attention to too much. And I was just starting. Again, my son was 9 months old. I sat in the teacher's room with all the teachers, and I said, if the teachers on the first floor all had to shoot the bad guy, the teachers on the second floor can keep on teaching. We need half the grief counseling, half of everything that we're going to need. They call the police and have them come pick up the dead guy. And they looked at me and thought I was crazy. So
I imagine, yeah.
So February vacation came, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna get a gun license. Like, I'm gonna figure out what you need to do. And I started the process in February, and I think by June, my wife and I had our gun licenses. Never fired a gun before. Certainly didn't have any idea where things were going to take me and how it would lead me, but I had a gun license. And that later that year, I took a basic pistol course, an NRA pistol course at the Gun Owners Action League, and I went shooting for the first time. And I was like, this is pretty cool. Do other people know about this? It was so much fun.
It is fun.
Yeah. That led to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. The next thing was acquiring some guns. So I actually called my mother up in the Midwest, and I said, hey, this shooting thing is pretty cool. Like, I've got a gun license. I became an NRA member, and I never fired a gun before. I fired a gun at that class. And I said, I think I want to get into this. And she said that my father died when I was young. And she's like, your dad had some guns. Maybe you should come out to the Midwest and get them. Like,
Nice.
We had guns in the house. I had no idea. So I drove out to the Midwest. I came back with a couple shotguns and a couple handguns, joined a club, and I was up and running.
That sounds like a lot of fun. A lot of people who are kind of like, they're a little bit afraid. They don't want to handle firearms, and that's okay. That's your choice to do that.
Sure.
But once, anybody that I know that hasn't tried it out, and you put them in the range, and all the safety measures, you talk about, everything that goes on with the firearm, how to be safe with it, and they get to shooting, and they're like, I love it! It's like, it's always the natural reaction. And I just want to touch base with what you said about what happened to you as a teacher and the instructions that were given, where you're running and hiding. That's going on all over the country. And it actually, it doesn't help the situation. Because, oops, our video's out. Are you video? Oh, there you're back. Because it really leaves you all. That's okay. It really leaves you all as sitting ducks. That's all I can see from that. In history, we talk about this a lot on the program, just about history in itself, about your own self-preservation. The idea that we are humans and we instinctively, want to preserve our life and the lives around us. And I don't think there's no authority on earth that can tell me that I can't defend myself.
Amen.
In any manner that I choose. So if I choose to defend myself with a bat, I can do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can do that too. But if I choose, I'd like to go to a gun match with a gun, not a knife. And because I want to be the safest that I can be. And unfortunately, we don't want a society that we have police officers on every corner, watching everybody's move. We definitely don't want that. So you can call 911 and the police are going to come, but 9 times out of 10 they come and the incident is over.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what the stats say. So by the time the police officer may get there, it literally could be too late for you.
Right. The police cars usually say to serve and protect, but it's really to observe and write a report is really what it comes down to.
Right.
I tell people when I eventually become an instructor, and I tell people when I teach classes that it takes about 14 minutes for the police to get there. Then I say that's like listening to Stairway to Heaven 2 times. So if you think it's a long
time,
it is. If you think it's long one time, listen to it twice, then the police will show up.
And it's not their fault, right? Because, we're not set up to be, a police state where, we have law enforcement, following us around, making sure we're doing nothing wrong. Okay. That would be, fascist. We certainly don't want that. We want our freedom, but it goes with the territory. So, us law-abiding citizens, we get to be free too.
Yeah.
And I believe gun control laws necessarily always penalize the law-abiding citizens.
They do.
The criminals, they're going to get guns anyway.
They completely are. Here in Massachusetts, we have, I did a gun class a couple nights ago from a gentleman who was in the military, and he moved here from Texas. And he came back up to this area because he has some family here. But he was telling me, I said, why would you move from Texas to Massachusetts, right? Other than for work, I don't quite get that. But he's,
right.
He's with some of the firearms and the hardware that he has, he's like, you mean I can't have this? You mean I can't? I can't. I said, you can have it. You have to make changes to it. You have to take an AR, and you can only have one evil feature. And it's either, one of the 5 evil features: the pistol grip, a collapsible stock, a flash hider, a bayonet lug, or a grenade launcher. And he's like, well, mine's got a pistol grip on it. I said, well, you have to pin the stock, you have to take off the flash hider and put a muzzle brake, and you have to have the bayonet lug taken off. And he's like, are you kidding me? I said, no. He's like, what about my 30-round magazines? I said, 30-round magazines are only okay if they were made before 1994. He's like, really? I said, yes. He's like, what do I do with these? I said, give them to your friends in free America.
Right. Yeah, and that's a double standard that we got going on in the country. The Northeast states, California, New York, New Jersey, you know, these gun control laws have gone way beyond what they were ever intended to do. So the federal government decided in 1968 to create the Gun Control Act, and the states are allowed to make laws, you know, to support the 1968 Gun Control Act, which basically says that, you know, you have to get a background check. And the second point is that if you're determined by a judge in a hearing to be mentally incapacitated, you can't get a firearm.
Right.
And those were the two main functions. Now, what happens when it comes to the state? Like you were just saying, those 5, you know, dirty words are now all of a sudden, you know, making your firearm not operable as it used to be. And for what purpose? I don't think it saves lives.
It certainly doesn't. You know, the Virginia Tech shooter, whose name I try not to remember, he went in with a Glock 19 and a Walther P22. The Walther P22 is a 22 caliber semi-automatic with a 10-round magazine. The Glock 19s, you can have 10 rounders, you can have 15 rounders, you can have 17 rounders. He went in with 2 handguns and a lot of magazines. And this is what's crazy about Massachusetts is we can have 10-round magazines, but nothing prevents us from carrying 7 or 8 of them. So we can still carry, you know, whatever, 20, 30, 40, 50 rounds on you if you want. Not that people do, not that people should, but the police get to carry the high cap magazines. They've got at least 15 rounds in their gun, and they usually have 2 spare magazines that are 15 rounders as well.
Right, and who is the government? What are the states doing? Like, they're making all these little rules that go far beyond what the Gun Control Act says, and I'm just like dumbfounded how they keep getting away with it. So the legislatures get together and they don't really know the logistics about firearms. They don't necessarily like the Second Amendment, but they're there creating these laws that absolutely make no sense to gun users, gun owners like you and I.
Yeah, this is true. I tell people in my class too, I said, people that make gun laws don't know about guns. It's like me writing a book on what to expect when you're expecting. I don't know what to expect. You know, it's
right.
I don't understand how all that would work, and that's not anything that I know. But they take all the feel-good stuff and, hey, well, we need to ban these, and we can't stop criminals from doing anything, so we're going to say that you can't have this item or that item, or this looks mean. I would like to find a way. You ready for this? This is crazy talk. I would like to find a way to ban people from having lots of muscles. Because here's why. I'm a middle-aged guy. I've been waiting. I've had the dad bod since I was in junior high. So finally, I'm excited about this. People with muscles look like they could kick my butt, right? You look like the Hulk. You have large capacity muscles. What do you need all those muscles for? Really? What's the sense of having all that stuff? Yeah,
they're kind of scary.
Right.
Yeah. Big man, big muscles.
This is why when you go to a nightclub, the bouncer's always a big, muscular guy. You know? So it's completely ridiculous, and we should, you know, I don't know, maybe we should ban people. But here's the thing: if you start people that you're going to ban how many muscles they can have, they're gonna be like, well, why would you do that? I don't know. I'm not a guy that works out, and you know, I don't have a great body. Okay, I'll admit it. But gun stuff. I'm not going to tell you that you should only, you know, work out to be a certain size or only lift so many weights. Don't tell me what I can do. I've gotten to the point where I'm so down with freedom that I'm not gonna tell you what to do, and I don't want you to tell me what to do. And my rights end where yours begin, and yours end where mine begin. And if you don't want to have a gun, if you don't want to carry a gun, that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. I don't want you to make me not carry one because you don't want to carry one.
That's a great analogy. I like that very much. It's also the same. I like to use this one. You know, people talk, the gun banners, they talk a lot about children safety, which is very important, of course. But the reality is that children under the age of 5 and under, the highest cause of death is by drowning. By drowning.
Right.
So if we wanted to prevent, child killing, and it's accidental, 9 times out of 10, and surely we could ban pools.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We need some common sense pool registration.
So, the idea is that, if we want to call ourselves a free country, we have to take responsibility for our own actions and inaction sometimes. And I think the best way to learn about guns is to, go to the experts. Like even in Hollywood, when they're doing like a gun scene, they always show the gunman with their finger on the trigger. Who does that? Dangerous people do that. You have to learn about gun. If you want to use a firearm, it's the same thing as, wanting to drive a car. Driving a motor vehicle is a dangerous thing, right? You have to practice. You have to get a permit. You have to, do all these things.
Right.
And responsible gun owners do that, just like responsible, car drivers. They want to learn how to do it, and you want to do it safely because obviously you want to protect yourself and others around you. Absolutely. And people out there in general, the public, if you want to know about the specifics or the logistics of firearms, it's really simple. Like, go talk to Charlie Cook. Come talk to me. Go talk to the experts out there. Yeah, I lost you for a second. Because
sorry about that.
That's okay. We're the ones who are going to be upfront with you. We're going to tell you the truth. So the reality is, everybody out there, do not put your finger on the trigger unless you have your sight in your scope and you are ready to kill. You are ready to destroy whatever is in your. You're not walking around the range or anything with. Which every time I see that, I want to shoot myself. You don't put your finger on the trigger. Why don't the directors go talk to the NRA or Gun Rights of America? Get some feedback. This is how you use a gun properly. So all this misinformation out there that gets really frustrating. I want to talk about something going on in the news right now. So there was a mass shooting at a nightclub in California. I think it was yesterday morning.
A couple days ago.
It's been a couple of days now.
Yeah. 12
people shot dead. Of course, I see it on my social media feeds about the call for gun control. Every time, a terrible incident does happen, the gun banners, the politicians, they're screaming at the top of their lungs that we need gun control. What would be your answer to that?
We don't need gun control. We need some gun education. People need to learn how to be safe with a gun. I've talked to a lot of friends of mine that are non-gun folks, and this is kind of a fun conversation. They like to tell me that we need universal background checks. Right. So if I have a gun license, I have to go through 2 background checks in order to get my gun license. I go through a background check with the local police, and then I go through one with the state police. And if I want to sell a gun to someone else who has a gun license, they've gone through 2 background checks. So I actually had a conversation with a friend of mine about all this. And I said, I go through a background check every 6 years in Massachusetts for my own gun license. I go through one every 5 years in Utah as a Utah permit holder. And I go through one every 3 years as a Utah instructor. So I turned to my friend, I said, so if I have somebody else that's been through all of this and they've got their license and they've gone through background checks, why can't I transfer a gun to them? And they're always like, well, you should go through a background check because they could have committed a crime. I said, well, if they committed a crime, then there's a real good chance they're going to lose their gun license and their guns are going to be confiscated. And then I tell them, I say, hey, you don't have a gun license, do you? And they're like, no, I don't have a gun license. I said, so you haven't been through a background check. You could be a criminal. And then I hang up on them, and then we don't talk.
Yeah, like, aren't we like innocent until proven guilty? Like, isn't that like foundation of our society?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. We really need to teach people about not just about gun safety, but we need to teach people, okay, well, that's what this is. I tell people all the time, I say, listen, an AR-15, people, I had a class a couple weeks ago, and and he was a teacher, and he's like, you know what, I'm a little concerned about, AR-15s. I'm like, well, it's just a semi-automatic rifle. And I said, if you've been in the military since the 1960s, that's what you trained on. And the gentleman was in the class a few days ago. He was in the military. The two guns that he wanted when he got out were an AR-15, because he trained on one of those, and a Beretta 92, because he trained on an M9. That's what he's familiar with. And I say, these just look mean. I hate to even air quotes when I say all that stuff, but that's just how they look. And then I ask him, I say, have you ever driven a Jeep before? Oh yeah, I had a Jeep when I was younger. Okay, that's a military vehicle. Do you have cargo pants or cargo shorts? Of course I have cargo shorts. I got a lot of stuff that I carry in the pockets in the summertime. Those are military pants. Do you wear camouflage? Oh, sometimes, I got a camouflage pair of shorts. Okay, that's military clothes too. So we're into this, I don't want to say we're militant, but we're into having that sort of stuff.
Yeah, we're Americans. I mean, cowboys and Indians.
Right.
I don't think you're allowed to play that as a kid anymore.
No, it's.
They don't even. And I'm in Florida. So a few years ago, they were having my son's elementary school was having like parent day, and if you can come in and you can talk about your career, what you do for a living, and so on. So at the time I was writing for Human Events, and I was the gun rights writer. That was my job. I wrote about gun rights. So I had a conversation with the school teacher, and I said, well, I'm a writer for a conservative news journal, and I write about the Second Amendment. So I want to talk about that. And she was like,
when my son was,
she said, Raquel, you can't even wear a shirt with a gun on it.
So when my son was doing the Revolutionary War in elementary school, I emailed the principal and the teacher, and I said, hey, I have an old musket I'd like to bring in and talk about firearms. And they're like, yeah, no, you can't do that.
And the thing is, it really takes away from the kids, because they don't learn that history. I mean, how fantastic would that be for you to come in with a musket, and show the class, which is really history, and that would have been fascinating for them. And now they don't even, they don't get to do that. Back in the day, a long time ago, there used to be gun ranges underneath the public schools.
Oh yeah, in the schools, sure.
In New York.
These pictures come up every few months on social media where there's a school, and honestly, the ones that I see the most are either young kids, probably 9 to 12 years old, or a group of women. And they're shooting in the basement, in the hallways.
Yeah, nobody was shooting up, schools back then either, or,
Right.
nightclubs. At least that wasn't, it's not really common. When you look at the stats, it's not as common as, people would like you to believe. I think the problem is more like a breakdown of family and a breakdown of values, and kids really have to be taught right from wrong. That's the parents' job. I think the generation, I guess, below us, Charlie, I don't know that they, were held accountable for their own actions. So it's sort of like, everybody gets an award, everybody's wonderful, everybody's MVP. Yeah, they don't play dodgeball in school. Did you play dodgeball when you were a kid?
Not only did we play dodgeball, we used to play this game called, oh my gosh, I think it was called wall ball. And what we would do is we would get in like this small crunch down fetal position, and our friends would throw tennis balls at us. I tell my kids that we did this. I said, this is what we did before the internet. We would throw balls at each other. Like, one guy was the target. We would throw balls at him. We'd each get like 5 chances to throw a ball. And, you get 5 chances, and then somebody else tries to throw the ball and hit you. And if you get hit, then their turn is over, and then somebody else goes over.
And then you get to do it to them back. You get to hit them back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you just cover their head. It's really simple. I remember playing dodgeball. Just don't hit me in the head.
Right.
You ever play paintballs? Paintball?
I've never played paintball. I know a couple guys who do. I've never gotten into it.
I did it once. I did it once, and it was like a family event. And I was in my 20s, and my older brother, who was like, a thorn in my side all the time, telling me what to do.
Get him back.
So he was on the opposing side, which was bad. And he was all camouflage. He was, all really into the paper. It was his idea. So as soon as you like break up and then they're coming in, my brother's like facing me and he's like, I'm going to get you. And I start running. I'm running so fast. I was like, terrible. He catches up to me. Boom, 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 boom.
Right.
But I survived.
Of course you survived.
Yeah, I'm not having nightmares. I'm not having PTSD. Oh, incident.
Right. You got a couple of bruises. You'll be fine. You have some ice cream. It'll be fine.
Exactly. But it's a different time. What would be your suggestion, Charlie, as to how do we, as a society, prevent these mass shootings from occurring? Because they're really horrific.
Well, first of all, having been a teacher for the last 25 years, I'm all for allowing teachers to carry if they want to carry. And if they do want to carry, then give them the same scenario training that the police have. And whether it's through, I know a lot of people do the ALICE program. I know some folks that do the faster.org.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that do that, and that seems to be better than the ALICE program. But if the teachers want to do it, give them, let them carry, give them training. There are plenty of teachers that I've met in my career as a teacher that I don't want them to have a gun. And I think that when people say, well, if the teacher's going to shoot kids to get them to be quiet, first of all, it's not going to get them to be quiet. And second of all, that's completely ridiculous. If you think your teacher or your kid's teacher is that unhinged, that if they don't come in from recess, the teacher's going to pull a gun on them, you have no idea why people carry a gun. It's a self-defense tool. And like you were talking about earlier, I want to be able to protect myself and my kids, and I owe it to my kids to be able to protect them and to be able to protect me. They're my kids. I need to instill, talk about instilling value. I need to instill the value of my own kid's life into them, and I need to instill it into, I have it for myself as well. So I think if we teach, take a lot of the, what's the word I'm looking for? Take a lot of the, I don't want to say you want to give people more knowledge about what it is and what they have and how they use these things, and maybe what are the likelihoods that you're ever going to end up in a scenario like this, because I've got a lot of friends who are like, well, you carried a gun for the last 10 years. Do you ever need to use it? It's, no, I've never needed to use it, but I've also worn my seatbelt every time I get in the car, and I've never needed to use that either.
Right.
So it's giving people an education. I think a lot of it also, besides the societal stuff, that the family change and keeping the family unit together and all that, I really think that if bad guys went to jail, that would be great. Like we really have a revolving door of justice where people come in, a guy commits a crime, here in Massachusetts, I read about it in the paper all the time. Somebody commits a crime, armed robbery, they plead guilty to robbery, they throw out the armed charge, then he never ever had a gun. Didn't even happen with a gun. He gets probation, he's right back out on the street in the afternoon. And it happens all the time. So if we have these, bad guys, we have them in jail. If we just enforce the laws that we have. When Joe Biden was president, he came out at one point and he said, hey, we need to, we've got 22,000 laws on the books and they don't work. We really need some better laws. Dude, what do you need better laws? Like, some things can't be more illegal. It's not more illegal to rape and rob and murder someone. It's already illegal. How do you make it more illegal?
Yeah, that is true. And Congress really needs to stop that. Yeah. Because it's law upon law upon law. It's very duplicative. It's just the same laws that they keep making up. Sometimes I just want them to stay home.
Oh, absolutely. Here in Massachusetts, we have this thing that was passed. It's called the ERPO. It's the Extreme Risk Protection Order, and it's the red flag bill. And basically, what it says is, if you are a threat to you or someone else, that person can report you, and the police will come. If you have, now, first of all, it only affects people with guns, because if people that have a gun license, if you have a gun license, they're going to come confiscate your guns. We already have that. It's called a restraining order. You fill out the restraining order. If you have a restraining order pulled against you, they come to your house. if you have a gun license, they're going to find this out. They're going to take your gun license. They're going to take your guns. We already have that. We already have that. What do we need it for twice?
Yes, that is true. And it really is, I believe, unconstitutional to do that anyway, because you don't have due process. They're confiscating guns from licensed owners who haven't done anything wrong.
Right.
Right. So I haven't committed a crime yet. If I were to go to the emergency room in New York, if I were to go to the emergency room in New York, and this happened to somebody who went in for insomnia. So the doctor prescribed him some sleeping medication, and he went home, adios, slept a couple of days. Next thing you know, he gets a call from the sheriff's office. This is out in Nassau County, Long Island, and they're like, yeah, we're coming to get your guns. Get ready. Excuse me, why are you coming to get my guns? What did I do wrong? There happened to be a call from just a medical employee. It doesn't even have to be any kind of expert. It was just some employee in the medical field that wanted to, tattletale. This guy had insomnia, and he also is a firearm owner, and and very arbitrarily choosing and deciding who has rights or not. So he goes to, he gets hires a lawyer, he has to pursue it in court. This costs money. For what? Because he went to the emergency room and complained about having insomnia.
It's crazy. I had a back surgery about a year and a half ago, and I had a hard time walking. My leg gave in, all this stuff. Anyway, I went to the ER I couldn't get any answers from my doctor. I went to the ER knowing full well I'm going to eventually end up at a hospital. What I'm trying to say is I didn't have any guns on me. I just had knives. So I go to the hospital. I find out that they want to do an MRI. So I have to strip down to the Johnny, or whatever, put on some the hospital clothes, and I had to take all my stuff, and they're like, okay, we're going to put your clothes in a bag, and then we're going to move you here. And I'm like, well, so I have my wallet in there. I had some cash in there, and they're like, is there anything else? I'm like, I got 3 knives. And she's like, oh my God, you have 3 knives? I said, listen, I said, I'm a gun instructor. I knew I was coming here. If I didn't know I was coming here, I would have had a gun on me as well.
Right.
It's nuts. And then,
did they treat you like a bad guy?
No, I'm not a bad guy. I just, sometimes
did they treat you like that? Did they treat you like that?
Yeah, she kind of looked at me kind of weird. I'm like, look, the doctor has a scalpel. Isn't that a fancy knife?
Good point.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's very natural, I think, for us, and just throughout history, it's really this self-preservation, self-defense. And of course, the founding fathers knew, it wasn't just for self-defense against the common criminal. So, it's also that barrier against the tyrannical government, because in history, tyrannical governments always disarm. They always disarm. Because it's the only way to take control of your people.
It's the first step. If somebody can't fight back, then you can do what you like with them.
Right, and that's exactly what Hitler did to the Jews. They had to be disarmed in order for him to do what he did, and it's a lesson in history. And I just want, I'm like pleading to the public, pay attention, because the Second Amendment is really there for so many good reasons. It's not just about hunting. It's not just about self-protection. It's also the barrier against a tyrannical government. There's a reason why the founding fathers, came up with the Bill of Rights, which were actually enacted about a year later, because these rights, according to the documents I've read, these rights were among Americans, the new Americans, was that they already exist. They didn't really feel the need to that they had to put it on paper, because these amendments were something that exists through God's law, really.
Right.
And then they saw the possibility of our rights being encroached upon, and they went ahead and put these Bill of Rights into the Constitution. And I think it was the right move. I just want Americans to understand it's just as important as the First Amendment. So taking away my ability to have a firearm is actually, it's just like putting tape over my mouth and not letting me talk. It's the same thing. It's a civil right.
I saw someone speak one time, and he brought up an amazing point, and it's something I never thought of. Everything, all the creatures have some sort of predator, and they have some sort of defense mechanism. Every one of them. Zebras are in stripes because it's easier for them to blend in. Deer are colored the way they're colored so that they blend in. And everything is like this. Fish have jellyfish can sting things. The skunks, you know, they spray their smell on stuff. Turtles have shells. Everything has a way to protect themselves. Everyone does. And for us, it's how we choose. We can either have pepper spray, or we can learn kung fu, or we can carry a knife, or you know, carry a firearm. Whatever it is, we all need to be able to protect ourselves.
Right, but if you're in a gunfight, you gotta come with a gun. You can't go.
That's why they call it a gunfight.
Knives don't work. You're
right. I
on the defensive.
I love talking to some people, and they're like, "Whoa, you know, what is this?" You see these pictures on social media where like there's a woman standing there and says, "Real men use fists." Okay, real men use fists. So are you encouraging them to beat you? I don't want to get into a fist fight with somebody. I don't want to be within bad breath's distance of a guy who wants to take my stuff or kill me. I want to have some distance. I don't want to, well, you should just stab him with a knife. I don't want to get that close to a bad guy. I really don't.
Right. It always is it has to be a defensive measure. So we're not pushing for people to, carry firearms, because they want to pick fights.
Right. We carry them as defensive weapons, not offensive weapons.
Yeah, and you mentioned it earlier about while we might not in a lifetime be put in a situation where we need our firearm, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have it, right? So indeed, police officers, the majority of times, they will not discharge their weapon for their entire careers on duty. For their entire career, the majority of police officers. So, where police officers can have, according to the Constitution or the U.S. Supreme Court, we don't give special rights to special groups. So we're all equal under the law. Mm-hmm. So if we decide as the American people to create laws that take away our Second Amendment rights, well, we're doing it not only against the Second Amendment, but it's also against equal protection under the law.
Right.
I have to be able to have whatever the government has, whatever the police has, whatever the military has, as far as I'm concerned, because that would be equal protection under the law. They don't get special favors. And, I'm trying so hard to convince some of my friends, who are liberals, and it seems like I hit brick walls. I want to know, because you're a school teacher, and so I imagine that you probably have had some experience with very liberal colleagues that try to, argue this point with you. How do you portray it? How do you get beyond the liberalism?
Well, the good news is with the current job that I have, I go into a school, I teach and I leave, and I go into another school and I teach and I leave. So I don't have to spend time with teachers. So it's kind of a blessing.
That helps.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time since I've had to teach in a public school, but I certainly talk to people. I say, listen, it goes back to the rights. I don't want you to tell me what I can and can't do, and I'm not going to tell you what you can and can't do either. If I value myself to be able to protect myself, to carry a defensive tool on me, you shouldn't tell me not to do it. And I'm going to think you're crazy for not doing it, but I'm not going to say that you need to do it, because these are the same people that are the ones that are like, well, if somebody parked too close to my car, I'm going to go shoot them. What are you, crazy? I like to tell them, you know what? You're not smart enough to have a gun. You can't comprehend the reason that we have these.
Yeah, that's right. And, really there's 300 million guns that we know of in existence in the USA. And if it were true what the liberals said, that, we just don't be all shooting each other, for ridiculous things like car spots, parking spaces, we'd be like, hell on earth right now. But the reality is that, responsible gun owners aren't doing anything wrong with their firearms, so
Right.
my firearms haven't hurt anybody. In its entire existence of me owning them, I haven't hurt anybody, and I don't get the part that others want to penalize me.
Yeah.
Want to make it difficult for me to exercise my own freedom.
There was a story about a year and a half ago of a city a couple towns south of Boston. It was the story came up as, it started off as an attempted murder. This woman found out her boyfriend was cheating on her, and she took one of his guns and tried to shoot him. That's what the story was. Then it turned into, he is a gun instructor. He had 66 guns and thousands of rounds of ammunition, and we need to find out if all of these guns were legally owned. I'm like, whoa, wait a second.
Yeah, he's
Let's
the
go
dead
back
guy.
to attempted murder.
Yeah, really, or attempted
We're
murder.
going after the victim here. Now, whether or not he should have been cheating on his girlfriend, that's, neither here nor there. She tried to kill him with his own gun.
Right.
And now they want to find out if he had these guns legally. What are you, crazy?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is how we don't hold people accountable for their own actions.
Right.
There's absolutely no excuse. I mean, attempted murder is a serious crime.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, whether you get the firearm, wherever you get it, wherever you get your instrument of deadliness, it doesn't matter. You are the person who are committing the crime. See how, but they turn it against the gun owner.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, I think that's totally unfair.
It's completely unfair.
So you're a music teacher, right?
Yes.
Okay, not to get too far off topic, but I have to tell you something that you're going to really like. You're going to think it's really cool. My oldest son, Robert, he's a Juilliard grad.
Wow.
He plays classical clarinet.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. I love it. I love music. Yeah. Except, and he doesn't watch my show, so I won't. I'm not going to worry about embarrassing him.
About him, it's okay.
Yeah. Because he grew up in New York City, and he went to, Juilliard and another private school, which was, I would say, a professional children's school, pretty much liberals. And even though I'm like this very conservative mother, don't do this, really, the Constitution, America, kiss the ground, you walk on, my son. I'm very pro-man. And he's all like, Mom, you're woo. He's kind of like anti. I like to say he thinks he's a liberal, but he's not. So he's 31 years old, and I can't convince him of the whole, Robert, guns, criminals do crimes. It's an animate object. You can't ban something for something that somebody does with it. Somebody is doing something bad. That somebody is bad, not the actual instrument.
The item, right?
And I can't even get through to him.
It's the most frustrating with the people that are closest to us. And I think sometimes they just do it to get our goat, just to make us, get us worked up about it.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you're right. Do you think us, the people out there who are really, promoting gun rights, do you think we're making any leeway into the public?
I think with things that have been happening over the last couple of years, and I've only been, I hate to say I'm an activist, but I've been more active in the last couple of years with all the newer things that I'm working on. First of all, everybody that I've run into in the gun community is awesome. They're great. They're helpful. They're willing to cross promote like this. Like I sent you a message. I'm like, hey, I thought you were in New York. I want to interview you for my show. You're like, well, I'm not. I'll be up there later. Let's do it later. Can you be on my show? Of course. This is what we do. Yeah. And with the, I'm sure you saw the Time magazine article from a couple weeks ago. It was Guns in America. It was a big to do. It was it looked a lot like Sgt. Pepper's. The Sgt. Pepper's album. It was a bunch of people that were either for guns or against guns. Yeah, and with those kinds of things coming out, I think that's good. I noticed there's on the top left-hand side of that picture, there's a lot of student activists. And I'm like, okay, what are the student activists? What are they really doing other than saying, hey, I'm a school-age kid and, you know, I don't want to get shot at school. Okay, cool. I'm a teacher. I don't want to get shot at school. But I think with all of that, I think we're slowly making progress and changes. I'd like to think it's all good stuff. We're trying to get out and educate people, and not to get them as much into it as we are. But if they're completely dead set against it, and they're like, okay, it's not so bad. I guess it's not for me. I don't want to do it. Hey, you know what? That's okay too. They've educated themselves a little bit more. They've learned a little bit more about it. They've learned that we're not all whatever, right. You know, whatever your stereotypical Elmer Fudd, you know, gun owner is. We're not. We have beautiful women that carry, and they're a whole new business of women carrying guns. And it's not the whole pink it and shrink it like the gun industry did. We need things for women. We need, you know, Dean Adams puts a lot of stuff out. There's Urban Moxie puts a lot of stuff out. I know there's a Girl in the Gun. All those ladies, they're out there doing great stuff, and it's changing the demographics of what gun owners are, and how we look and present ourselves.
Yeah, I'm pretty positive too. I think there is a lot of positive things going on out there, which is good, and absolutely that, you know, women are becoming more and more involved, and the gun community really is like a big family. So I had Linda Walker from Milwaukee on the show a couple of months ago, and she was talking about us being from the NRA. She's a board member from the NRA. Yep. And she was talking about how, you know how you go to like family reunions and you're like, ooh, I don't want to really see them. You know, you're like, oh, I don't, you know, you kind of want to go. You don't necessarily like the people, right. You know, but you have to go anyway. But when it comes to the gun community, you know, whether it's a gun rights policy conference or the NRA annual conference, you go there and you're like, everybody's friends. We love each other. And like the cross promotion stuff constantly goes on, and I don't see that in all aspects of the media. I absolutely don't see that being a writer. That, you know, when it comes to 2A, our community is so tight. Yeah.
It really is. What I do isn't what you're into, and what you do is not what I do. And, you know, you would hear people say that going to, and I used to listen to Cam and Company, and he would have Ted Nugent on, right? And I know Ted's very polarizing, but he would have Ted on, and Ted's like, it's a big family reunion. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. And then, you know, I went to the GRPC. I went my first year. I didn't know anybody. I met Ken Blanchard.
He's been on my show.
Ken Blanchard, the black man with a gun.
Yeah.
So I met Ken, and I ran into him at the airport in Tampa, going to the conference. And then there were a couple of other names of people that I've seen on social media, and I went up and talked with them, and then it just clicks. It absolutely clicks. And then the next thing you know, like for me, I went from, I had this idea to interview people in the car, and I don't know who I can interview, and then I got to interview Mark Walters, and Mark Walters, he was the one that really hit it off for me. He's like, hey, this is fun. This is cool. 2 days afterwards, he called me up. He's like, do you want to speak at the Gun Rights Policy Conference in Tampa? Yes, I do. And then you get down to Tampa, and then bam, everybody's great. And it's all the cool people. And it's every time, I mean, following each other on social media and then seeing each other at the GRPC it's great. And then you meet new people, and then you meet more new people, and you can never keep up with everybody. I absolutely love it.
It's a really big family. So I welcome everyone in the public to get involved and to take a look at the issue a little more seriously, closely, and do some research, and you will see that it's not, the firearm is not the enemy. The firearm, we are not your enemies, and we don't want school shootings. We don't want terrible criminals committing terrible crimes just as much as anybody else, you know.
Right.
And I would just about do whatever it takes to make, you know, to help others or to save lives. I mean, that's not, but let's have a discussion. Let's have a logical discussion. Let's not pass a law in 3 days without any input from anyone with any expertise. For instance, in the state of Florida, when we had the school shooting earlier in the year, you know, the Florida legislature got together and they bang, bang, boom, they make all these laws that just didn't make any sense. There was no time for hearing. There was no time for a discussion. It was only a time for people to react emotionally. And I can admit that my reaction was emotional as well. So I may have been on a different side of the emotion. So my immediate reaction was, I want all the teachers, I want police officers at every single school. You could protect money, you protect the president, you protect the governor, you could protect our kids. That, you know, that was my initial, I want armed police officers guarding our schools. That, you know, that was my initial reaction. Okay, then after a few days, kind of take a step back and really think about what would that look like. You know, do I want this like police state situation? Probably not.
Right.
However, I'm willing to have a conversation. You know, are there ways that we can help prevent this? Yes, let's talk about it. But I want to have a conversation with someone who's willing to listen, who's willing to have this two-way conversation. We're both adults. We're all adults. We can come up with some type of solution. But don't bang me over the head with a club, because I'm on the 2A side, so automatically I'm wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing with gun licenses is we have to go through a background check to get them. You know, we have to meet training requirements. We have to go through the background check on a regular basis. We're not the bad guys here. We're really not. And honestly, I've talked to so many people. I tell people in gun classes, I say, if you're at the shooting range and something doesn't happen, and whether it's a misfire or something else, I said, if you don't know what you're doing, put the gun down, finger off the trigger, keep it in a safe direction. If there's someone in the shooting lane next to you, ask them for help. And they're probably going to give you help, because they don't want you to accidentally shoot them. And I also tell people, I did this to one of my friends, and she's very liberal. I said, you want my, you know, she was in her mid 30s, and she's like, yeah, I want to get married. I want to meet somebody. I'm having a hard time meeting a decent guy. I said, here's my dating advice. Get a gun license, buy a gun, go to a shooting range, because every guy that you meet has passed 2 background checks. This is what I need. You know. Yeah, this is good advice. Absolutely.
And you meet like responsible, you know, we're like a family. I can't, you know, I've been involved in a lot of different things my life, board of directors of these, you know, one issue or another. But this 2A issue is absolutely fantastic. And the people are so much fun. Like you.
They really are.
Every time I go to any of these conferences and I've been inviting, you know, a different person on just about every single week. Mm-hmm. And every person, you know, has a different, their perspective might be a little different. You know, we all agree on we're pro Second Amendment, but everybody has a different perspective. And I like to give them an opportunity to describe that. And certainly you have today. Which I'm really glad about it. You know, want the public to understand that, you know, it's not fair that, you know, I'm getting beat up and I'm not even being looked at or being held responsible for my own actions. I'm not beating up on anybody else, you know, because they like to have tattoos. You know, I don't have any tattoos. If you like to have tattoos, that's okay. You know,
right.
Not that that's criminal.
Really.
You know, people are weird like that. But don't penalize me just because, you know, I'm a Second Amendment supporter, you know, which is how I feel. But we are coming, it's been a great show, Charlie. We are coming down to the end of the show. And I want you to go ahead and let us know what exactly that you're doing now. So you have a video podcast while you're driving?
Yes. So what I do is I'm an instructor, but I have a couple things. One of the things I do is I make videos while I play the trumpet and shoot a gun at the same time. I call those gungrams, Gungram, and I've got a YouTube channel for those. So if you look for Charlie Cook and Gungram, they'll come up. They've been all over the world. I've stopped counting. It's been about a year that I've stopped saying this, but there's at least 20 million views on a bunch of different outlets.
Now,
Pardon?
Will you do like private shows? Like have the gungram sent to somebody like on their
absolutely.
birthday?
I have. I did a gungram of. Like people order them, and I'll do a special song for somebody and a shout out to somebody, and then I send them the YouTube link and they give it to them as a gift.
Oh,
and yeah, it's a lot of fun. I did one for a Creedence Clearwater Revival tune for somebody in Germany last week. So I have that. The other thing that I do is I have an interview program that I do in my car, and I call it Riding Shotgun with Charlie. And I've got a YouTube channel. I put the audio out as a podcast. I got a Facebook page that I keep things up to date on, and I put out shows twice a month. I've interviewed Mark Walters, Ken Blanchard, Amanda Sefcool, and Rob Campbell from Eye on the Target Radio. I've interviewed Marcus Weldon, Rick Ector. I have an episode coming up with Andy Reardon, who's from Maine. I interviewed her a few weekends ago. I interviewed Holly Sullivan from the Connecticut Citizens Defense League. And I'm going to keep it going. It's a lot of fun, and it gives me an opportunity to do something like this and hang out with people and drive them around. And sometimes we get lost, and sometimes we grab a coffee. It's just a lot of fun. It really.
Yeah, we got a date then.
Absolutely. When you come up to New York, we're in. I've never driven to New York. I've only driven by New York. So.
You may not want to.
Oh, that's all right.
A lot of traffic. It'll be fun though. It'll be a lot of traffic. You have to be a defensive driver. Just very, very offensive. You have to be offensive and defensive. You got to go fast.
Got to go fast.
Otherwise, you're left in the dusk. Everybody just passing you.
I can't wait. It's going to be fun.
Okay, I want to thank you again, Charlie. It's been great. I can't wait to meet you in person. Thank you for all of your input on the show. I want you to go ahead and have the last word.
All right. Well, I just want to say thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. Playing the trumpet, shooting a gun at the same time, interviewing people in the car. I think I'm relatively quick and witty. I like to tell people that I'm bringing fun ownership to gun ownership.
That's great. I'm going to definitely check out your videos. It's really cool,
Awesome.
Charlie.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you. Okay, there's one tradition we have on the show that you have to do at the end. Yeah.
You didn't tell me this.
I don't tell anybody to the last second, but everybody complies. Everyone complies.
All right.
Like, just wave.
All right. We will see you guys later.
See you next time. Woo-hoo!